Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this quarterly meeting of the Licensing Committee. Just for the record, I'm Councillor Neil Waite. I know on my right is Justine Case, who's the legal representative, and Karen Mayo. She's the young lady taking all the minutes. Just for the sake of the plan web, could I ask each council if they'll just introduce themselves, please?
Yeah, Councillor Mike Harris, Pontypool.
Councillor Robert Kemp, Buchan.
Councillor Steve Brooks, Sindel.
Councillor Giles Davis, Abercychan.
Councillor Maria Graham, Lantana. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We move on to any declaration of interests. Does anyone have any declarations of interest at all? If not, we'll move on to item agenda 3, which is the minutes of the previous meetings, which is pages 5 to 10. Could we go through them for accuracy, please? Page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Is there any matters arising at all on any? Just for accuracy again, we'll just go through it again for any matters arising. Page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Could somebody move this true record, please? Mike Addis, seconded. Thank you. We move on to the next item agenda, which is minutes again of previously licensing hearings. That's pages 11 to 22. And again, for accuracy, we'll go through them. Page 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Just to ask again if there are any matters arising. We go back to page 11. No matters arising. Page 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Could someone again move their true and accurate record? Councillor Steve Brooks, is it seconded? Can anyone second it? Thank you. So we go on to the last item on the agenda, which is the quarterly update of licensing matters. I think this is where I should hand over to Steve or Claire, if Claire will come in and give us the report. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this morning's report...
Chair, sorry, I'm not sure if that microphone is working.
Testing. Thank you. The purpose of this morning's report is to update the committee about all licensing matters for the second quarter of the period 2014-2015, the months of July, August and September. It is recommended that the committee note and comment on the contents of the report, the committee note the delegated decisions, and the committee note the activity report. If I can refer to the Licensing Act 2003 first. During this period, there's been 8 complaints made against licensed premises, which include allegations that 2 premises have been selling alcohol to underage persons, 1 premises allowing persons on pub watch bans to drink in a premise, disorder at licensed premises, and public nuisance. Licensing officers have dealt with these matters in a variety of ways, which include calling in licensees and warning letters. There have been a number of representations made against an application for a new licence for an Indian restaurant in the Cwmbran area. The committee will be updated at the next licensing committee. A licensing hearing was arranged to take place in July, following receipt of 4 temporary event notices that were submitted for Cwmbran Town Centre. The applicant gave notice to sell alcohol and provide regulated entertainment from midday until midnight on 4 weekends during the month of August. Objections were received to all temporary event notices from Heddley Gwent Police. A licensing panel was arranged to hear the notices. The applicant did not present himself at the panel, and the panel decided to reject all 4 notices, so they didn't go ahead. The minutes of this are attached at agenda item 4. Licensing officers have dealt with a number of inquiries for new licensed premises, club premises, and variations to existing licences during this quarter. Out of the 5, 2 applications have been submitted, and the licensing officer is expecting the other 3 applications to be submitted in the near future. Licensing officers have had cause to visit 8 premises during this quarter and issued notices of suspension due to non-payment of annual licence fees. Following the visits, all were paid. The policy template for the Licensing Act 2003 and as soon as it is ready, it will be circulated to committee members to ask for approval. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Bendel, who will update you further.
I'll try again, as I say. I'd like to formally register within the minutes of this meeting of our continued concern as to the standard of the audio system in here. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in many other meetings as well. And what on earth the general public think of that just beggars belief, quite frankly. Get somebody in and get it fixed.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. That has been noted. I hope Collins has made a note of it, and we will pursue this because it is really embarrassing. Thanks.
Right, Chair. Sorry about that. Well, I was going to say that I have to bring this up to the meeting today, even though it's not mentioned in the report about the licensing policy. I attended the final meeting of the Gwent Licensing Forum actually on this Monday, which finalised the policy template for the whole of Gwent. So we're having a consistent policy across the whole of Gwent with obviously localised tweaks in it. We're now in this position now where we're going to make it, but also we agreed a timetable so that all 5 Gwent authorities will be consistent on on the way in which the policy is implemented. But this means a timetable, which means I won't be able to bring it before the next licensing committee because we will already have started. So our next licensing committee won't now be until January, and we will have already started the consultation by that point. In order for us to all be consistent on implementation round about the 1st of June next year. So I'm bringing it to your attention that we've sort of agreed this is a Gwent forum, and I hope this committee is comfortable with that agreement. What I will do, as soon as the policy template is ready to go out to consultation, which will be within the next few weeks, I will actually send a copy to each member of the licensing committee to allow them to make any comment and to approve the policy going out for consultation in an informal way rather than a formal meeting. I hope that the members and the chair, you're happy with that approach.
Certainly, Mr. Bendel, that's fine. I think it makes common sense, to be honest, for everyone to be really in the same ring.
If I can go back now to the report, Chair, and pick up at point 5.2, Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing. Officers have inspected 15 vehicles, 1 operator base, and investigated 9 complaints in this period. The complaints in relation to Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing include a driver accumulating 8 penalty points on his DVLA driving licence. As a result, he was spoken to and a warning letter was issued. A complaint from an operator that a driver was continually sleeping in a licensed vehicle. The licensing team received a report from another council department that a driver had been witnessed smoking in his vehicle for a 4th time. The driver attended the licensing office and was advised that if he was caught a 5th time, his badge would be reviewed. And the licensing office was notified of a licensed vehicle with 2 defective front tyres following a routine inspection at one of the approved testing stations. The licensing officer called the driver and vehicle into the council offices to be inspected, but the driver had replaced the tyres before attending. A complaint was also received from an operator in relation to allegations that customers' purses were going missing when they were being conveyed by a driver. A report was prepared and presented to the Chief Officer for a delegated decision. The Chief Officer chose to refer the matter to a licensing panel. The driver did not attend and the panel was adjourned. The driver has not since made an application to renew the badge, and therefore the licensing panel will set the matter aside. The police investigation is ongoing. The licensing officer has received a letter from the doctor of a licensed driver which stated that he had concerns over the medical fitness of the driver to continue to drive licensed vehicles. The matter was referred to the Chief Officer for a delegated decision, and the driver's badge was revoked with immediate effect. However, the licensing officer was then in contact with the doctor and received a written communication which stated that the applicant was then considered medically fit. The driver has now been granted a new licence. A complaint was received from a member of the public raising concern about the attitude of a driver and the roadworthiness of a Hackney Carriage vehicle. Upon receipt of the complaint, the vehicle was sent for a test by the licensing officer to one of the approved garages and was found to be not roadworthy, and the vehicle licence was immediately suspended. The driver was also given a written warning for his conduct as a driver. If I can refer you to 5.2.7, following a delegated decision by the Chief Officer, a licensing panel was arranged to take place following complaints of inappropriate conduct of a licensed Hackney Carriage private hire driver. The committee will be updated about the outcome in the next quarterly report. The licensing officers also received information that a licensed driver had received a conviction in relation to the malicious communications in June 2014. Inquiries were made, a report prepared for the Chief Officer for delegated decision, but the Chief Officer chose to refer the review of the driver's badge to a licensing panel. A panel was arranged, the driver did not attend, so the panel was adjourned. Since the panel hearing, the driver has not renewed his driving badge, and therefore the licensing panel will set the matter aside. The new knowledge test has now been running for 9 months. The latest report from Torvine Training is attached at Appendix A. In relation to the Gambling Act 2005, there have been no complaints for officers to investigate during this quarter. However, licensing officers have had cause to visit 2 premises following non-payment of annual fees. Both fees were paid following the visits. In relation to the Health Act 2006, there has only been 1 complaint that licensing officers have had cause to deal with. This was reported back in 5.2.2. Street trading, there's been no complaints this quarter. However, the licensing officer is currently dealing with 1 licensed trader who has failed to make a number of monthly payments. The consent holder has agreed to clear the outstanding amount by the end of October, and I can confirm that has been paid now. There's been no issues reported in relation to charity collections during this quarter. Likewise, no complaints made about scrap metal collectors. 5.8 refers to prosecution appeals. At the last committee, it was reported that there is an ongoing appeal of a magistrate's decision in relation to the prosecution for illegal street trading. The application has been made to the High Court's Queen Bench Division. The appeal by way of case stated has been accepted, and licensing officers are now in receipt of a date for this to be heard in December. An update will be provided at the next licensing committee. Licensing officers attended magistrates' courts on 13th of October 2014, following a prosecution against a licensed Hackney Carriage private hire driver for the offence of unlawfully plying for hire in a licensed private hire vehicle. The defendant pleaded not guilty, and the case will be heard in December. The licensing officer is currently investigating a complaint that a licensed driver was deliberately removing the licence plate and covering the door signs of his licensed private hire vehicle whilst using the vehicle for his own purposes. Case law states that the licensed vehicle is always classed as working, and legislation states that a licensed vehicle must at all times display the rear plate. Door signs are to be displayed if it is a requirement of the Council. Torvine insists that all licensed vehicles display door signs to make them recognisable to members of the public. Licensing Committee will be updated as to the outcome of this pending investigation at the next committee. With regards to paragraph 6, licensing team performance, I'd once again like to hand over to Mr Benzel, who will update you with regards in this matter.
Thank you, Chair. The reason I'm coming in here is because this report is obviously pointing out the fact that we've had to suspend, or at the point of writing this report, stop all proactive work. During the past 12 months, we've had some serious issues with staffing, and has now resulted in another member of staff being leaving the licensing team. We did have 2 administrators who dealt with all of the callers coming in, taking applications, dealing with all the telephone calls, etc. We now have only 1. It's impossible for us to continue working in the way we were, and we got into a position where we had to consolidate, and the only way that I could do that was to suspend all proactive work that was not necessary to, just the normal inspection regime. It was not something I wanted to do, and it's not something that pleased me, because we've worked to a high standard for a long time, doing a lot of proactive inspections. However, since writing this report, we've had to have a look at the way in which the licensing team works, and we've had to put some a different approach, because we're not going to get that post replaced. So we're now working with nearly 50% of what we had 2 years ago in the licensing team with the losses we have. So therefore, the stopping of the proactive has now been lifted. However, the strategy that we have put in place to deal with the shortfall in our admin support is as follows. Some of the biggest draws on our time are actually people calling to see us, which you may say, well, yeah, that's what we're there for, well, which is quite correct. But unfortunately, what happens is that when people come to see us, they lodge applications with us, which then have to be processed. If the person doing the processing is still having to run out and deal with people at the front counter at the office, that disrupts that flow of actually doing the inputting into the system. So we have now basically not closed the office, but we've said that all personal callers without an appointment, because they can still make an appointment to come in at any time that suits them, but any personal callers without appointment, which is most of our work as the admin thing, are only coming in between 9 and 12 Monday to Friday. So they can come in every day between 9 and 12. Obviously, if anyone's got a particular difficulty, they can make an appointment and come in at a different time to see us. But that then gives the administrator the opportunity to sit down and concentrate on dealing with the inputting into the databases in the afternoon. Otherwise, we've got the situation where is this there, there, and things go wrong, and we've had to consolidate in that way. Because we've only got one licensing administrator, obviously in periods of absence, annual leave, etc., there is no one to support that administrator. So it does mean now that officers have to drop back, and at points in the last year, even myself at team leader level, I've been doing administration work, dealing with callers to the front counter. Now obviously we've had to look at that and see when that is absolutely necessary. So what we've done is the officers will have to cover in periods of absences, which means it's going to detract from their proactive work. So there's nothing we can do about that. There's no option. The administrative task is a must-do. The proactive work is a nice-to-do. We would love to do it, but it's not an essential. It's not a must-do. So I've had to look at the musts, and the coulds have had to slip. Doesn't mean to say we're not going to do proactive work. We are still going to deal with complaints. Anything which is high risk to public safety and everything else will be dealt with, and it will be dealt with efficiently and correctly. What I'm saying is we're not going to go around and do a lot of the scheduled inspections because they're on a list. That's what I'm saying here. As soon as we get an issue, the police come up with an issue, or we get a complaint from the member of the public, they're going to be dealt with robustly and the same way as they always have been. The other thing that we've put in place, and we're doing at the moment, is we've got an administrative team within the Planning and Public Protection Unit. They're stretched as well because they've lost staff recently. But what we're doing, we're training a couple of those, the members of the admin team, to sort of take a little bit of the pressure off as well of people calling at the front desk. They can take an application and do the simple side of things. They will not be trained to the same level as our licensing administrator. Our licensing administrator is a technical admin. They have a lot of knowledge about the law and procedure with regards to the applications. So that licensing administrator will be looking after them during a period. They're in a training period at the moment to see how this works, and we will be reviewing our performance and the way in which we work over the coming weeks and months. To see if there's anything we can do to change it, to make things better, etc. So we're in an experimental stage with changing the way in which we work. But certainly the biggest thing from our point of view is reducing access to the public to us. To be fair, I think we're one of the very few, if not the only council in Gwent, that you can actually ring up directly without going through a call centre. And we're probably the only council where you can walk through the door without an appointment. So, to be fair, we're still running an appointment system and someone has to come in at a time outside of ours, but we still like to try and give the service that the taxi drivers know, and it is mainly taxi drivers that we get on the personal callers, but the taxi drivers can actually come through the door and walk in, but they know they've got a 9 till 12, 5 days a week, that they can actually do that. And that and allows us to manage our workload better. And that's what we're having to do here. Less staff, we have to just manage the workload better. And those are the things that we've put in place. The licensing officers, whilst I said I have lifted the stop on proactive work, the other issue here is with our service improvement plan figures, which are on the appendix. There is no compulsion on the licensing officers to actually achieve those targets. I think, to be honest with you, with the two officers I have, which is Claire and Simone, that they will be coming very close, if not actually achieving them anyway. But I can't put a compulsion on them if I'm going to take time away from them to do other stuff like the admin. I cannot say, right, we have to think about whether or not we can achieve those targets. But like I say, it's only the scheduled stuff and not the day-to-day complaints and issues. Issues will still be dealt with. They have to take priority. So it's just to inform you of the way in which we're changing our working practices because of the difficulties with staffing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pendle. Thank you for it is a good report. It's a rather worrying report. But before we go to the recommendations, I'd like to ask any member, do they have any questions they might want to ask Mr. Pendle? Councillor Mike Harris.
Thank you, Steve and Claire. Claire especially for giving the overview of the quarterly update. And Steve, I take on board the difficulties that you're overcoming and the prioritisation that you have to make. But going back to Claire, I just want to pick up on one point that which was 5.2.2, and it was the third paragraph. And it's the one where it's where you dealt with a person smoking in a vehicle, and it says there that if he was caught a fifth time, his badge would be reviewed, and I take it is reviewed and not revoked. Every case I take it is on its merits, and it's just for the public reassurance. In the private sector, it could be an instant dismissal for smoking in the car just once, but for taxi drivers, fifth time or fifth strike, and it'll be reviewed. Is there a time when you actually would revoke it if persistency?
When a licence is reviewed, there is a number of options that is available to that decision maker. One of those options could be to revoke. It could be a warning letter. There are a variety of different options, so it will be down to the decision maker to make that decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire.
Does any other member have any comment on the report? Well, as you can see, the recommendation is that the committee note and comment on the contents of the report, and that the committee note the delegated decisions, that the committee note the activity report for the second quarter 2014-2015. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. So that's just what ends the report, isn't it? So I'd like to just thank everyone for attending. It is rather concerning about the shortage of staff. We all understand, but at least we all got the same information now, that because some people come around with different rumours, but we all know the position that the licensing team have been put under the strain. So after saying all right, I think they've done a wonderful job. I'd like to thank you all for attending this morning's meeting, and I now close the meeting. Thanks.